What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of WABA Whip Around. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. You can give me a follow at RichQ on my YouTube channel, as well as IG and X. And of course, on TikTok, RichQ on the mic. Follow the WABA, as always, get social with them. A very busy Saturday, August 23rd, 2025. And as we're getting ready to say goodbye to summer, falls right around the corner. We are already in week 7, so I hope you guys have been enjoying the action. And as we typically do, we'll go through a couple of marquee games. We'll run down the schedule, the standings, player of the games, and we always end the show with Q's top 5 as far as our power rankings and what to know ahead of week 7. Well, the veteran teams' offenses have really kind of been the story of the season thus far. Yes, the Aces are certainly the team to beat, but how do we judge the Lady Wolves, who are 8-0, but they were also given the benefit of 2 forfeit wins? That's going to be a key down the stretch for some of these teams as well. And a couple teams, unfortunately, they were trying to limp through the season, and they're not going to make it through the season. And that's unfortunate because of logistics and roster changes and the whatnot. But with that being said, we have to get set with some of these marquee games, and I'll run through the gamut today. So you got the Carolina Lady Cougars taking on Point Swish. That'll be a 1 p.m. game. You have the Lady Wolves we just mentioned against Richmond. That's 2 p.m. Maryland versus Virginia, 5 p.m. And then you have the Aces looking to continue their undefeated streak to start the season. The defending champs take on Winston-Salem Lady Warcats. Now, Mississippi was supposed to play Louisiana. Louisiana only a handful of games, unfortunately, with some shuffling of the rosters and logistics. They were just not able to get in games this weekend. And as it stands right now, probably not going to finish out the season. It's unfortunate because I know that their coaching staff and Coach Rick Woods. I know he tried to keep everything afloat. You'll see some players jettison and now play on different teams, which we will get into in a couple moments. Not really sure what's going to go on with Atlanta and Savannah as well. They were scheduled to play today, and that game basically is off the docket. So as far as the key games and matchups, I mentioned Richmond versus the Lady Wolves, and I love this matchup because you got two physical teams. Second meeting between these teams, Lady Wolves handing Richmond its lone loss of the season, 101-83. That was a couple weeks ago. Richmond defensively, they had zero answers for Daniel Prey and Octavia Wilson, who also had 34 points. So, like I said, here are two very good players, and offensively, they just could not shut them down at all. Now, Richmond 6-1. I told you they've won 2 straight. Lady Wolves sit with that very impressive mark of 8-0. One of the surprises of the season now, to be fair, again, 2 wins for Richmond were also via forfeit. So, how are we judging these teams going forward? I think the Lady Wolves are a scary team. They put up 121 against Virginia in a game that was not even remotely competitive. I said this several weeks ago. This team is legit. Octavia Wilson is absolutely no joke. She's a big time scorer. She's a big time player. She's well rounded. She can, she's a solid guard. She can score. She can dish. She can play true point guard. She can play off the ball. She poured in 37 in that route. They've scored over 104 times this season, 120 twice. You add in Shepard, Lomax, they can beat you inside and out, down on the low block, across the perimeter. Richmond, here's a team that showed a little grit, little character, and a 1-point loss against Virginia, 92-91. They're a confident team. They like to push the pace as well. They need to figure out a way to guard on the low block, make the right defensive switches. And honestly, if they try to run, I think Lady Wolves win this one by at least 15 or 20, to be quite honest with you. So that's a look at one of our marquee games. I mentioned Maryland and Virginia. We always love that I-95 battle, right? I mean, these two teams have split the first 2 meetings this season. Virginia got the better of Maryland in late July, winning that contest by 21. What stood out defensively, they were just so good down the stretch. They forced turnovers, pressure on the ball, and that's one of the reasons they were able to win that game kind of going away. But Virginia needs to stop the bleeding. They've dropped 3 straight. Lots of promise early. Were awarded some wins by forfeit as well. They sit with a mark of 4-4. Had two very tough games against the Lady Wolves. Again, defensively, you can't allow this team to go over 100 points. They were able to do that both times and wins. I think Virginia needs to get back to what was working for them earlier in the season: physical defense. You look at those transitional buckets. You got to battle, and that's what I like. They need to make this a low-scoring 65-60 type of game. They can face guard, they can pressure, they can get some turnovers in the opposite end, maybe opportunities for some twos into threes, threes into four. That red light's on. I think, they can keep this close. You have to keep it within 10 going into the third and the fourth quarter. And then if you can make a run, you can make a run. Aces and the Lady Cats. The Lady Cats 1-point win over Maryland. They were also granted a couple forfeits as well. Still trying to figure out, which version of them is going to show up, right? They had some issues on offense and scoring consistently. If you look at their point guard, Amber Cook, she's been a pretty solid point guard, really, for them for most of the season. Here's a player that's going to give you 10 points, a couple rebounds, 4 or 5 assists. They're a decent shooting team, right around 45% from the floor. I think they're going to have a tough time matching up with the Aces and their bigs. I mean, they've got, the Aces just have legit scores, right? Whether it's Gamble, whether it's Prim, whether it's Edwards, who's netting around 21. Jamie Cherry has stepped up for the last 5 or plus games. She's a very solid player, smart player, averages about 10 a clip. She's a good rebound. We saw that against Augusta, 12 boards in that game the last time out. So they're clearly the best team in the league and the odds-on favorite to repeat as champs. So that'll be a 4 p.m. tip-off. Richmond and Maryland on Sunday. That's a 2 p.m. tip-off. Mississippi, Subdivision 2. They start the season 3-2, and now they are 4-3. And interesting enough, we talked a little bit about Mississippi early on in the season because everything with Mississippi was about being a physical team, rebounding, working the ball in and out. Now, though I mentioned they don't have that game today, so they get the benefit of a rest, and then they've got Midwest Sound tomorrow at 1:00. Now, interesting again, I did find out Ariel Wilson is with the team. She is playing. I guess some of the stats were not updated. She's going to be out there. She has been playing like league MVP. They're also bringing in Ruthie Bolton as a guest player. I was also told that former Spice player Chrissy Brown is also apparently going to suit up as well for the Queens this weekend. So listen, unfortunately, Louisiana season ends in a handful of games, but the Queens right now, you got a 2-time Olympian, a retired WNBA legend in Ruthie Bolton. And I think it's pretty amazing at 57, 58 years of old, she's going to go out there and play. And that's an honor to the league to have her out there representing the sport of women's basketball. So, listen, she's a Women's Basketball Hall of Famer. Rebounding was the key for this team early on. I think that's kind of going to play in the form down the stretch. That's really when they're most successful, and they had those 3 wins against Louisiana. So, now you add Brown, a good rebounder, a solid player, Wilson, who's just been a terror, up and down both ends of the floor. She's such a phenomenal player. And, this is a game should be right there for Mississippi. All right, congratulations, Octavia Wilson and also Kennedy Stacy, both with 37 points respectively for their squads. Those were the players of the week. We want to go through the standings. We want to go through the schedule one more time. I want to give you my top 5 as well before we get out of here. And we told you, this is a very, very, very fast pace when we do the WABA Whip Around. Again, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. You can follow me on X and IG at RichQ on Q. Log on to my YouTube channel at RichQ on Q. And, of course, follow the WABA. And also follow all their teams respectively. As I mentioned, privileged to get a handful of games in with the Spice. A couple teams, they're not going to be able to finish out the season. That happens sometimes in these leagues, but I know they're going to come back stronger next season. All right, quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. As I mentioned, we'll go through the standings, some stats. We will also go through the schedule one more time, and then we will give you Q's top 5 entering week 7 of the WABA season. And it is just rolling along. Quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. Keep it locked in. All right, welcome back, everyone. WABA Whip Around. Rich Quinones here. I mentioned these upcoming games Saturday. You can see the docket. You can also look at the games on Sunday. We'll keep that up for a moment. I'll go through the schedule again. This is Sunday, 1 o'clock, a couple hours away. I believe this game is going to be in North Carolina. Carolina, Lady Cougars versus On Point Swish, 1 p.m. tip-off, 2 p.m. tip-off, Richmond and Lady Wolves. That's going to be a really good game. I think that's going to be a physical game. Maryland, Virginia, we love that I-95 battle. That's a 5 p.m. tip-off. Both teams have done a really nice job getting their communities involved. The Aces, like I said, they are just a tough team. I mean, look, they're 8-0. Is it possible that this team is going to run the table? Now, again, one of those games against Savannah back in August 16th, about a week ago, that was a forfeit. But this is a team that scored 146 against Greensboro, scored 100 and 55 against Savannah. They were in a little bit of a dogfight against Winston-Salem. They were in a little dogfight against Augusta. They pulled away late against Greensboro. So I'm not saying they're leaking oil, but right now they're still a very good team and certainly the team to beat at this moment. As always, get social with us, www.womensaba.com. Check them out on IG and follow the YouTube channel link as well. We post that in the notes. For Sunday's games, Mississippi against Midwest Sound, Richmond against Maryland, Greensboro against Winston-Salem. And remember, you can take off Louisiana against Augusta. You can take off Steel City against Kalamazoo. It appears those teams will not be able to finish out the season. Unfortunate, but hopefully some of these players can kind of latch on to some of these other teams. All right. As far as I wanted to make a point too when we go through the top five, but and I'll get to this in a moment. You're starting to see. We talk about some of these offenses in the league, and the girls are starting to find their rhythm and rhyme right now, which is always tough to do. But you can see which teams are getting in good practice time. They've got some synergy, and it's showing. All right, as far as the standings, North lower, Lady Wolves 8-0, Richmond 6-1, Virginia 4-4. DC 0-4. Maryland, they lost 8 straight, or pardon me, 6 straight. They've had some issues this season, but they play hard. Aces, as we mentioned, in the Subdivision 1 South, 8-0. Carolina 6-2. Winston-Salem 5-3. Then you've got the Subdivision 2, Augusta 6-2. Mississippi 4-3. Listen, I think Mississippi, as long as you got Wilson, you got a puncher's chance. Then we've got West Michigan Elite Stars. They're 5-1, On Point 5-2, and that's in the Midwest. All right, let's take a look at some of our stats. Powered by the WABA. Watkins right now with 28 a clip. Wilson, we mentioned, player of the week, 28. Young, that sits there at 23. Hopefully she can, grab onto another team. She was with the Spice. You got Edwards coming in at 21. Cherry averaging about 8 assists. We documented her. Gamble having a real good season for the Aces as well. 5.8 dimes a game. Nunn still a machine on the boards with 14. Townsend with 3.7 blocks, and then Harris with 4 steals a game. All right, last time out, we'll come back and then we'll do Q's top 5, and then we'll wrap things up on a Saturday edition, WABA Whip Around. Keep it locked in right here. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Get social with me at Rich Q on Q. All right, welcome back, everyone. We mentioned here your upcoming games for week 7, and we gave you some of the storylines as well with some of these veteran offenses. The story, which team right now, a lot of people believe it is the Aces to beat. Lady Wolves, how are we judging them? And then depth. These teams that are kind of weathering the storm of not losing players in their roster, they will have a say come playoff time. All right, Q's top 5 entering week 7, and here we go. Obviously, the Aces sit at 8-0. They're still the top team. Lady Wolves 8-0. They're number 2. Lady Cougars 6-2. They are number 3. On Point, that's right. On Point Swish 5-2 come in at 4, and then Richmond 6-1. They are my top 5 team. Now, again, I did a little shuffling here. The Aces with their too much scoring, we know how good they are. The Lady Wolves, because of the 2 forfeit, but they can also score about 113. Defensively, they're doing an outstanding job. They allow 74 points, one of the stingiest defenses in the league when it comes to allowing points per clip. The Lady Cougars are sneaky good, and I love the balance of On Point. They don't blow you away with stats. Several players have 10, 11 points or more. The spacing on the floor, they can rebound, they can play defense, they can get to the line. 3-point shooting below the league average, right around 19 a clip. But Booth, Stacy Thornton, Steady Eddie, as I like to say. Richmond, I have them 5. I could have made an argument to keep them outside the top 5, but still, 2 forfeits, sneaky good. Give me a double-digit solid win against Maryland, and you're going to stay in that top 5. So that's Q's top 5 for week 7 in the WABA, including today's Saturday edition of Whip Around. All right, don't forget, as always, get social with me, get social with the league. As I mentioned, a lot of games Saturday and Sunday. We always wish great travel, safe travel for all the teams of games and Spirit as well. We will do it again during the week. We'll see if some of these teams get bounced in the top 5. We'll see if some of these teams that are looking at their undefeated records, that are just staying true to form right now on the line, are they eventually going to take an L? I mean, I'm telling you, man, you look around and my goodness, it's like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. And right now, as it stands in the league, you got 2 undefeated teams left. You got the Aces and you got the Lady Wolves. And, something eventually has to give. Something has to give, and we'll see how it plays out. Enjoy Saturday's contest. Enjoy Sunday's contest. Have a wonderful hoops weekend. We'll be back in the saddle with you Monday with On Cue from 4 to 5 Eastern Time. You can check that out on SR 1029 FM The Game, my YouTube channel, X, Facebook. Also, we post clips on IG. But for the Hoopers out there, enjoy your Saturday slate of games in the WABA. And of course, on Sunday. And as always, this has been the WABA Whip Around. I'm your host, Rich Quinones. We will talk to you guys midweek. We'll recap all the action. And don't forget, enjoy the games, support the league, support the players, support the community, and check out the games. It's very good competition. The girls are doing a phenomenal job. We hope you enjoy this edition of WABA Whip Around. Have a good Saturday. We'll talk to you later in the week.